Straight all day.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What the hell is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, techniques, mindsets, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called, let's all say it together, work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. You are the right person in the right place at the right time, because today's topic is why I do not have any hobbies. I do not have anything that I do on the side. I don't have anything that I do for sports and leisure. I don't have anything that I do for fun other than what I do right here, or the things that you know me for doing, the front-facing things that, for the most part, if you follow this show or you follow me on social media, you read my many emails that I send out, which are almost as numerous as this podcast, then these are the things that I do. I don't have any other things. I don't have any diversions from this thing right here. And I'm going to explain why that is here today. This episode is not really about me. It is about me, but it's not really, because some of you are going to relate to this and then you'll understand it. And I'm making this episode with hopes that, actually, I'll tell you what the hope is in a minute. First, let me tell you some housekeeping, that I have a daily motivation text message that I send out every single day that I want to make sure everybody who wants it receives. To get that daily motivation text, all you got to do is text me at the number that I send my text from, which is 305-384-6894. Send me a text at that number right now. You'll be in my texting community. You'll get the daily motivation text that I send out every single morning to everybody in my text community. And you can respond to any of those texts and you'll be texting with me directly. Now, this episode, why I don't have any hobbies, I'm making this with the hopes that some of you who are listening to this, and maybe you found that you're one of those people who is, you have this thing that you do that you're really focused on, and that's where you spend your time, and it's enjoyable to you. You get value out of it. You don't need a diversion. You don't need a vacation. You don't need a holiday. You don't need the weekends. The weekends don't even really matter to you. Every day is pretty much the same. And this is a good thing for you, not in a negative way, but in a positive way. And maybe you have people around you, or maybe you read some book, or maybe you heard some motivational speaker, or some life coach out there telling you something around the idea that, well, you need something outside of the main thing that you're doing. You don't need to just focus on just one thing all the time. You need something outside of that. You need to get you a life outside of this one thing that you're always doing. And you're starting to, maybe you already did, maybe you start to question yourself and wonder, maybe there is possibly something wrong with you, because you're just focusing on this thing that you're doing and you don't have anything else that you do outside of that, and you haven't felt like you need to do anything for fun outside of it. When you look at other people around you, they all have other things that they do besides the main thing, and you're thinking that maybe something's wrong with you because you're not going along with the crowd. The hope that of me putting this out here today is that maybe I can help some of you see that not being like everybody, quote unquote, everybody else, is maybe exactly where you need to be. Maybe you don't need to change. Maybe it's them that are the abnormal, and it's you who is actually on the path that you need to be on. And it's not about you getting them to do things your way, and it's also not about them getting you to do things their way. Sometimes your way is just your way, and other people don't need to understand it. And if they can't understand it, it is not your responsibility to explain it to them. And we can just understand to not understand. Same way people say disagree to not disagree. Personally, when it comes to me and things that I do, why this title is this title, I work out. I think most of you probably know that I exercise, I work out, I like to run, I have a boxing trainer, I lift weights, do strength training. That's what I do for my body, physical fitness. I work, this is part of my work, what you're listening to right now. I spend time with the people who matter to me, and that's it, that's all I do. That's pretty much all that I do. And anything else that I do, like these books that I have sitting on my desk right now, I'm not talking about my books, I got my books on the desk too, but also books of others that I'm going to read. That's really part of my work, because anything that I take from that book, I'm going to apply it to what I do for a living. And even if I apply it to my personal life outside of work, something that happens in my personal life or something I glean from my personal life may end up in one of my books. It may end up as an anecdote on one of my podcast episodes. So everything kind of blends in together, if we're being honest. What I do exercise-wise, what happens in my personal life, what I do for work, all of it can blend in together. I can use any piece from one aspect in another aspect. And that's what it is. That is my life in a nutshell. I just told you my whole life right there in 2 minutes. Now, why is this? The reason this is, I'm going to tell you today. I'm going to explain this reason. And perhaps, as I said, you may see some or many similarities in yourself. If not in the actions, perhaps you will see it in the reasoning, in the mindset behind it. And the goal here today, again, is not so much to talk about myself. This is, again, I am going to be talking about myself. I talk about myself in every episode. But, well, for two reasons. Number one, to help some of you understand, because I've had people ask me this, Dre, what do you do outside of working when you're not working? The things you talk about, I follow you on social media, you're always talking about what you're doing. This thing is work. Seems like everything you're doing is somehow related to work. What do you do for fun? What do you do when you're not working? I'm going to answer that question here today. And I'm also going to, I really want to, the real reason is to shed light for those of you who might feel like you look at things the same way and you have people trying to encourage you, or persuade you, or influence you, or pressure you into doing things differently because that's the way they do things. And that is the wrong reason to do anything. I'm going to explain all of that today. Let's get into it then without any further ado. Point number one, the topic once again is why I do not have any hobbies. Point number one, this is my fun. What you're listening to me do right now, this is what I do for fun. Recording this show is fun for me. This is a leisure activity. It's also work, it's also business, it's also a job. It's a job because I got to show up and do it even in the days when my energy is not as high as other days. It's a business because it drives people knowing about me and me driving revenue in my business. And by the way, here on this podcast, my highest value clients and customers, almost all of them, 98% of them found me through my podcast, not through YouTube, not through Instagram, not through Facebook, not through, I don't even know any other ways. My highest value people all found me either through my podcast or me being on somebody else's podcast. So podcasting is absolutely a fun thing for me. But any other type of content that I'm putting out, any other thing that I'm putting out, this is all part of my fun. It's fun for me to get up, work on my game in whatever way, make myself better, strive to achieve. These are all things that I enjoy. These are not burdens. These are not things I got to force myself to do. These are things that I want to do. And these are the things that matter the most to me, and that's why I put my time, energy, attention, focus, and money into doing it. If you didn't read between the lines there, those are the 5 forms of investment that I discussed in episode 609, time, money, attention, energy, and focus. And that's where I make the bulk of my investments, in doing these things, working on my game, making myself better, striving to achieve, and then turning around and showing you and whoever else how they can do the same things for themselves in whatever way I need to disseminate that information, which is why I have over 2,000 episodes of this show, because I could just say this in one shot. I could just put it in one book. And if everybody understood it that way, if that one message could get through to everybody in the world and they could all get it on the same level, then I would only need one episode and one book, one video, one article. But we know different people need to hear things different ways. Some people need to hear things more than once. You got to try different messages. That you could have 10 different people who need to hear 10 different ways of getting to the same point for each one of them to really get it for themselves individually. So that's why I can put out so many different things, because one message might get through to you, but the next message, it might not reach you so much, but it really gets through to the person sitting next to you, because all human beings are unique and we want people to stay unique. That's why you got to put out different unique versions of the exact same message so that people can get it. So while work on your game is the unifying philosophy underneath everything that I put out here on this show, I've said it in 2,000 plus different ways just to make sure that I'm reaching everybody who needs to be reached, where and when and how they need to be reached, which again might not be the same as how you need to be reached. So those are the 5 forms of investment. And it's fun for me to, actually back up, it's not fun for me if I was forced to do something like take a vacation. And when I say vacation, I don't necessarily mean traveling somewhere, but going in, or not going, but not being able to do this. Like if I just wasn't allowed to record for 2 weeks, that wouldn't be fun for me. That wouldn't be a happy time off for me, because I want to do this. And if I take 2 weeks off from recording, as a matter of fact, I get a little bit rusty in my vernacular and my use of words. Or taking time off, that wouldn't be fun for me. Not doing anything would not be fun for me. It is the way that I am wired as a person. This is not something that I heard somebody say and I decided I was going to just copy them and live like this. This is the way that I'm wired as a human being. And the great thing is, these tools that we have through the internet specifically that have come along over the last 10 or so years, 10 plus years, have enabled people like myself and maybe people like yourself to make a business out of this, to make a living from doing these things and build an audience around doing these exact things. So thank God for the internet to have come along the way that it did and at the time that it did, because I looked at the other options that were possibly available to me had this not come along, and I wasn't excited about too many of those other than playing sports. But the problem with playing sports, not the problem, but the limitation of playing sports is that you can only play for a certain amount of time. There's only a certain shelf life to utilizing your body for your, as your main business. But there is not a shelf life to using your mind. As long as you're alive and you have control of your mental faculties, that shelf life is a lot longer than using your body as your main driver of revenue. Let's put it that way. So it wouldn't be fun for me to take time off, not do anything, take a vacation. That's just the way that I'm wired as a human being. I'm not telling you that you need to be like this. I'm just telling you how I am. And this is the way that I define success. If anybody's ever wondered, what is my definition of success? Here it is. Being content with doing the things that you want to do with your life. That's it. That's success. You're doing the things that you want to do, and you are content with the fact that the situation is the situation. That is success. So success is defined individually by each person. Success is not about a dollar amount. It is not about comparing your situation with another person's situation. Success is not about you being better than one person or being better than a certain number of people. It is not about where you are on the ladder compared to a certain group of individuals. Success is about you looking in the mirror and knowing internally with yourself that you are doing what you want to do with your life, and you are content with that. You are happy with where you are. When I say content, I don't necessarily mean that you're satisfied and you don't need to go any further or you don't want to go any further. When I say content, I mean you are positive about where you're at. You may still be striving, but you can look at yourself and say, I like what I see. I like what I'm doing. I like where I'm at. I like where I'm going. I like the trajectory that I'm on. Again, does not mean you can't be pushing yourself. Doesn't mean you can't be pissed off at yourself when you have a slow day, or that you're not, if you feel like you're not, living up to your ideals. Doesn't mean you can't still push. Doesn't mean you can't still have ambition. I'm still a very ambitious individual, but my definition of success is doing what you want to do. And you have to decide for yourself, first of all, what is it that you want to do? Then ask yourself if you're actually doing it. And if you're not, what adjustments need to be made, started with your being, then your doing, then the having, for you to get to that point. That is my definition of success. What I do right now, I'm happy with this. I'm pleased with it. I enjoy it. I don't want to take time off from it. I don't want to go away from it. I don't want it taken away from me. So that's why this is the first reason why I don't have any hobbies, anything that I'm doing other than these things. But I'm not done. Point number one. That was point number one. Point number two. Today's topic, once again, is why I don't have any hobbies. I do something from which I do not need weekends, and I do not need vacations, and I don't need holidays. Now, again, I'm not telling you that you need to do this. I'm not telling you need to operate your life in this way. I'm just telling you how I am. This episode is about why I don't have any hobbies. I'm not telling you don't need to have hobbies. If you want to have hobbies, have. I know people have a lot of hobbies, and they are, by the Western society's definition of quote unquote success, they are extremely successful. All right, these are the people that many of you will look at and say, wow, this person is very successful because they have this job title, because they have this, they work in this industry, because they make this much money, because they have this kind of housing situation, because they drive this type of car, because people look at them this way, because they got this nice suit on and they got these nice shoes. You will look at them as successful. And in the Western world, we measure success usually by material possessions. I don't measure success by material possessions. However, I understand that people look at your material possessions and try to gauge how quote unquote successful you are based on them. So while that is not the game that I don't subscribe to that game, but I understand that game. Let's put it that way. So what I'm telling you here is there are people who do take vacations and they do enjoy the weekends, and they are also, if you ask them, are you content with what you're doing and where you're at and how you're going in life and with what you do with your day on a day-to-day basis? They would say yes. And it's completely different from the way mine is set up. So again, I want to make sure that I'm emphasizing here, the way that I'm telling you about me is not some ideal that everyone must aspire to. This is just what works for me. I know people who, again, are very different, and they are happy with where they're at and they're doing their thing, and they would be looked at just as quote unquote successful, or even more successful than me. If you know the entire picture of everything that everybody's doing, most of the time you don't, but most of us try to gauge. So the things that I do for a living are work and fun at the same time. That's why I don't need a vacation. And that's why I don't need a weekend. I don't need a break. I don't need time off. It's why I don't need to look forward to the weekends or the holidays or for days off, 3-day weekends. I don't look forward to those things. If they happen, I'm fine. I'll take it, but I don't care because my work day is the exact same way every single time. I don't really have business hours. I don't really take phone calls anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. But I think you get the point of what I'm saying. Even though I could take a weekend, I could take a holiday, I could take a vacation anytime I feel like it. And if I did take a vacation, I'd probably take a vacation like on a Monday through a Friday. So that means that all the other people who are working Monday through Friday are not going to be in my way while I'm out vacationing wherever I happen to go. I could take one if I wanted to, but I don't want to. The definition of fun is, if you look it up in a dictionary, enjoyment, amusement, or light-hearted pleasure. Light-hearted pleasure. Let's say that definition one more time. This is a definition of fun from the dictionary. Enjoyment, amusement, or light-hearted pleasure. Now, you could get that at work. Do you think somebody do you think LeBron James has fun when he's playing basketball? He might take a vacation. Doesn't mean he's not having fun when he's at work. All right, any of you who's at work right now, do you enjoy being at work? Do you get enjoyment from it? Do you get amusement from work? Your job might not be so amusing, but maybe there's some things that happen that are amusing and you enjoy it. Do you get lighthearted pleasure from the things that you're doing? Maybe it's because you help people. Maybe it's because of the position that you have. Maybe it's because maybe it's helping the customers and clients. Maybe it's helping your coworkers. Maybe you're helping the greater society. If you do something like you're a community activist or you're a politician or you do something in local politics or something like that. Maybe it's the amount of money you make and you know what you can do with that money. Maybe that's what gives you pleasure. If that works for you, that works for you. There is no right or wrong answer here. But I get all of that from doing things like this show, like writing books, like running my masterminds, like doing speaking gigs, etc. So that's my fun. So when someone asks me, Dre, do you have any hobbies? Or they ask me, well, I tell them about the things that I do, and they say, well, what do you do for fun? I say this, all right, everything that I just told you, that's what I do for fun. There is no separation between church and state for me. All right, they are the exact same thing, and I'm just using that as a metaphor, of course. The fun is doing the things that I do that you know me for doing for work. Point number three, excuse me. I'm getting these numbers backwards here today. Point number 3, today's topic once again is why I don't have any hobbies. Number 3, most people who are listening to this episode, if we had the whole world listen to this, let's just say we took the number of people listening to this show and multiplied it by 10. Now I'm recording this in January of 2022. But just so you all know, over the last 4 months, we have set new highs every single month for number of listeners. So the month of December, that's the last full month that we had over 200,000 listeners to the show. In the year 2021, over 1 million downloads over the course of the year. It's the first year we did over 1 million. So thank you to everybody who's been listening to the show. And shout out to all the new listeners who started tuning in, telling your friends, word of mouth, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, let's just say we took this audience that's listening now, because I think many of you understand and work on your game philosophy. So this point that I have here might not be so accurate if I just took people who already know about this message. So let's just say we took this and we extrapolated it out by 10x, and we took 10 times the number of people listening now, just selected at random from the worldwide population. Most of those people would not understand what I'm saying here today. They wouldn't get it. I mean, they would logically understand it, but they would not emotionally understand it. I think many of you who are day-to-day listeners of the show, you emotionally understand it, you logically understand it. And as I said at the top of this episode, many of you, I made this to make sure that you understand that there's somebody out there who can relate to you. That there's nothing wrong with you if you just want to focus on one specific thing and that's what works for you, and you don't need a vacation, you don't need a holiday, you don't need a weekend from it, and people are trying to tell you that you do, but you don't. I'm here to tell you that you don't. But there are people who don't understand this, and this is my point. They would counter everything that I'm saying right now just from this very point, that you need an outlet from working, all right? That there's more to life than just work. And I understand why people say things like this. And here's the reason why people say this. So next time your significant other or your parents or one of your teachers or one of your coworkers or your next door neighbor or one of your family members tells you that there's more to life than just working, that you need an outlet other than this, you need a hobby, you need to get yourself a life outside of just doing whatever you do for business or for work or your career, whatever it is. Here's why they're telling you this. I want you to burn this onto your brain, because that's how they are. Here's something that you need to understand about advice. For the most part, there are some exceptions, and they are few and far between. I'll say about 2% of the population is the exception of what I'm about to tell you. Most of the time when people give you advice, they can only advise you as far as what they understand and how they live and how they see things themselves. Most people cannot give you advice about something that they have never seen, done, experienced, or thought about on their own. Again, maybe 2% of the population can step out of their own shoes and see something through the perspective of another person and help them see what works for them, and not just tell people what works for the speaker. You understand? So the speaker usually is the one, they're going to give you advice is based on the speaker's perspective, not based on your perspective, which is actually what will help you. All right? Why would the person who's talking to you, giving you advice, why would they give you advice that's going to make you more like them? All right? That's not going to help you. But this is how most people give advice. If you listen to it, this is how most people give advice. So next time somebody gives you advice, ask yourself a question. All right, look at their life and ask yourself, are they giving you advice that will make you more like them? If the answer is yes, then you probably should discard their advice. Unless, there's one exception, unless they ask you for advice because they want to be like you. All right, now, if you ask somebody for advice because you want to be just like them, then they should give you advice to be more like them. But other than that, most of the time you're probably not asking for that, they should be giving you advice that's going to help you be you, not help you be them. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when people give you advice, especially unsolicited advice, because those of you, and this is usually going to be unsolicited advice you're getting here, because if you're the type of person who feels like you don't need a vacation, but somebody's advising you that you do, it's not because you asked them, hey, do you think I need a vacation? No, it's because they came to you offering you some shit that you didn't even ask them for. And you know what the value of unsolicited advice is? You can figure out the number, but it's not a big one. All right, let's put it like that. It's somewhere between 0 and 1 in terms of dollars. People will only give you advice usually to move you closer to being how they are. Why? Because human beings are social creatures and people love company, positive and negative. Even if they can be a happy person. Listen, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with a person who likes having weekends and vacations and they look forward to the holiday season. They look forward to days off from work. Look, they can be very happy. They can be very content. They can make a whole lot of money. They can be very successful, however you define that word, but you're just different from them. Most people just want to move you closer to how they are, whether they feel good about themselves or bad about themselves. People just want company, period. And that's fine. But that's not how I am, and it might not be how you are. So if you ever read anything that I write or watch any of my videos or listen to any of my shows, does this ever seem like a drag for me? Does it ever seem like I'm forcing myself to do this? Does it seem like I made myself do this and I didn't really want to do it? Have you ever listened to an episode of this show and feel like I didn't feel like talking? I don't think so. I know this to be a fact, but I'm just asking, because if it ever sound like I don't feel like talking, I got to check the mic. So I got to talk to Nico and make sure the audio is right, because it should never sound like that, because that's never been the case. When I record episodes of this show, or I write an article, or I post something on social media, I'm excited to do it because I know the message that I'm putting out, and I know there are people out there who need it. The thing that I'm most excited about is how can I get this message out so that more people can get it? Because I know when the right person hears it, they're going to say, God damn it, why did I know about this dude last week? Why did I know about him 2 years ago? Why did I not know about this show, this article, this book 10 years ago? That's what I want to hear from people when they come across me. So that's why I'm excited to get the message out, and that's why this is not a drag for me. That's why this is fun for me anytime I'm putting this stuff out. It is not an obligation for me on a basic level. On a basic level, what I do here, this thing, is a calling. This is not something where I even have to, I do come up with material, I do have to come up with things to say, but once I think of the thing that I want to say and I start fleshing it out, I'm like, damn, I wish I had said this 2 weeks ago. I wish I said this yesterday. I wish I said this a year ago. So everything that I'm putting out there is just more stuff that I'm thinking of that I know people need to get. And maybe I need to repackage a message I said 2 years ago and say it in a different way. Maybe I got a different message that, damn, you know what? I never talked about that. Let me make sure I put that one out there. I often say that to you. Somebody asked me this question. I realized I never made a full episode on it. Now let me make an episode on it. Or I might say to you, you know, I talked about this 300 episodes ago or 5 years ago. Let me talk about it again now because I'm a little bit more articulate now. I can say it in a different way now. I can explain it in a way that maybe people didn't get it back then, but you'll get it now. And listen, some of you ain't gonna go back 5 years in the archives. You don't gonna listen to what's new. So let me say it again. So I say that all the time. You've heard me say that many times here on the show. This is fun for me because it's a calling for me to get this message out there to the people who need it. It's enjoyable because I get to see and hear from people who understand it. They understand not only on a logical level, but also on an emotional level, and they're getting a result from the things that I'm sharing. And that's the fun part, to know that I'm making an impact on people. It's not just I get to see myself on YouTube, or I get a number of views or likes or comments or any of that. It's the fact that I get to make an impact on real people, many of you whom I may never ever meet in person. That's the fun part. And it happens to be work because there's a way that I can generate business from it. And everything that I'm telling you here, none of this is, I'm not keeping any of this a secret. I've talked about all of this stuff here on the show. I've talked to you about how you can find your voice, how you can start building your ecosystem, how you can get your word out there, how to actually sell yourself if you're doing something like this, if you're doing something in a different way. I told you about all of those things. I give you the game. All right, that's why this is called Work on Your Game. I give you the game. Everything that I'm doing, I've made episodes telling you about how I do it and how you can do it yourself. I got programs on it. I got books on it. I have courses on it. Like, none of this is secret. So this is literally for me, the perfect line of work. That's why it is a hobby, it is leisure, it is fun, and is a business all at the same time. All that being said, let's recap today's class, which is why I do not have any hobbies. People ask me, Dre, what do you do for fun outside of work? There's no answer to that question because my fun and my work are not separate from each other. Point number one, this is my fun. It's fun for me to get up, work on my game, make myself better, strive to achieve, and then help other people do the exact same things. These are the things that matter most to me. This is why I put all my 5 forms of investment into doing these things. And the thing that matters, the things that matter most to you in life, look at your 5 forms of investment: time, money, attention, energy, focus. Those are the things that matter to you. So if you say something matters to you and you're not putting those investments in, you need to stop lying to yourself because they don't really matter. But that's where my investments go. Point number 2. I do things, or I do something for a living that does not require from me a vacation or a weekend. And again, I'm not saying this makes me right or wrong, better or worse. I'm saying this is just what works for me. Things that I do for a living and work are work and fun at the same time. I don't need holidays. I don't need vacations. The definition of fun is enjoyment, amusement, or lighthearted pleasure. I can get that from doing this right here. I get all of that from doing things like this show, doing a speaking gig, running my masterminds, etc. I don't need a separation. And point number 3, most people are listening to this, not you all who listen all the time, but people who never heard of me, they heard me talking right now, they wouldn't understand what I'm saying. They would counter that, well, you're just saying that. You need an outlet from working. There's more to life than just work. And I understand why most people say this, because most people, when they give you advice, they're telling you how to be more like they are instead of telling you how to be more like you are. That's why 98% of people are unqualified to give advice. But that's not how I am. If you read anything that I write or watch any of my videos, listen to my shows, you have never ever seen anything I put out that looked like I didn't feel like doing it, that it felt like I was dragging myself to do something that I didn't really want to do. And if it ever does, you can let me know, because there must be something up with the camera or something up with the microphone if it sounded or looked like that. I'm always excited to do it because I want to get the message out to the people who need it. It's not an obligation for me. This is a calling for me. This is something that I want to do. It is enjoyable because I get to see people understanding and getting a result from what I'm sharing, applying it on their own, and then they can let me know that they're getting something from it, even if I never get to meet those people in person. Hopefully I get to meet all of you in person at some point. So this is literally the perfect line of work for me. And that's why it's a hobby, leisure, and a business all at the same time. Now, with all that said, if you are in this line of work, you want to get into the thought leadership line of work, even if you're not in thought leadership, you don't want to be, but you want to figure out how you can find that combination of fun, enjoyment, business, creating opportunity, and helping people all at the same time in what you do, I would suggest you join my Bulletproof Mastermind, where we can look at what you're doing, look at who you are as a person, and figure out what strategically can we do to make the adjustments that will get you to the point where you don't feel like you have to drag yourself to work or drag yourself out of bed, or you're just not excited about your life or excited about what you're doing and where you're going. My Bulletproof Mastermind, I do a live training every week. We have a members-only community that is always open. There's always discussion and communication going on in there. I responded to like 20 notifications here just today in the mastermind. And you get direct access to me in the group program. Again, that is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Along with any of you who you don't want a group program, you want to work with me one-on-one, that's my 3rd day mastermind. You just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can see the options for both of those. And if you want to receive my daily motivation text message free of charge every day straight to your phone, all you gotta do is text me at 305-384-6894, free of charge every day, daily motivation text message. Work on your game. Dre all day.